Hi, this is Lenny, here with Dwell Time, about to embark on another interview.
Hi, it's Alice here, going to be interviewing Rebecca Winwood here. Please could you introduce yourself, your practice and your background?
Sure. So I'm Rebecca. For the last maybe 15 years, I've worked predominantly in theatre and performing arts. I work now as a theatre producer. So mainly kind of putting together shows. Sometimes I work for companies to put together a theatre tour. At the moment, I'm on maternity leave, but I am employed at the Lawrence Batley Theatre in Huddersfield. But as I said, in the past, I've produced things like theatre tours, festivals, different big events and things like that. But I also make my own work as well. So I write plays. Sometimes when money's tight, I perform in them and do quite a lot of speaking and hosting gigs as well.
How would you describe your mental health generally?
I would say that I now probably describe myself as someone who's got highly functioning anxiety. In that probably no one would ever think that I have had issues with mental health, because I'm one of those like ducks above water. You know, everything seems cool and you're like paddling like a crazy person. Actually, I would say that probably my anxiety made me really good at my job because it means you worried about everything all the time and then tried to prevent it. So you're killing yourself thinking about things, but then that probably makes you think about things that could go wrong and then prevent them. So, like I said, I definitely have struggled with anxiety. And I think that probably comes with anybody who runs events, especially in the day and age that we live in, where your risk assessments and things include things like terrorism plans and first aid and scary things like that. But also I think I am someone who's a perfectionist. I don't like to let people down. I don't like to ask for help. So I think it's a combination of things, which just means that it can eat yourself up, basically. And even though I have pretty good mental health generally, I can now identify the fact that I've had periods in my life where I have let my anxiety really, really affect me, and to the point where it was affecting me physically, not just mentally, basically.
How do you manage that as an arts practitioner?
I wouldn't say that I probably handled it very well, if I'm honest. I've never told an employer that I needed a day off or that I needed some time. I'm probably more of a, I'll just keep working, like push it out of your mind. I was always one of those people who got sick the day that you go on holiday. You know, you go, and then the minute you stop, you just fall apart. Yeah?
Yeah, I agree.
Oh dear. So, I mean, I would say that I often tried to just keep working, keep a busy mind, and that would hopefully kind of push things out of the way. But I never really had any really good coping strategies, and it was never an option for me to just go, I'm just going to take a few days off.
Do you think that would have helped if you did and could do that?
I'm not sure, because I think sometimes when I'm given too much space and time to think about things, it makes it worse, which is why my anxiety often hit me at night when I'd go home and I'd start to try and relax, or I'd be in bed and you'd just start thinking about everything. So sometimes my coping strategy would be, well, I'm not going to go to sleep. I'll get up and I'll go on my laptop and I'll fix that thing I'm worrying about. Which, while making me very good at my job most of the time, is not good for your, as I said, sleep, not eating. It starts to affect your physical health then as well.
What would be the ideal Do you think there's an ideal solution? Is it less work, just like a good balance, or different frame of mind, or what do you think would help?
I'm not sure. I mean, the arts isn't immune, obviously, to people having mental health problems. There are lots of jobs that are stressful. I think often anybody who's an artist or works in the arts, people go, that sounds so much fun. So people just don't think that your job could possibly be stressful. There's no way, it's so fun. Think of all the fun things you get to do. So in a way, it almost felt really trivial sometimes to go, this is really stressful and I can't handle it, because it's like an arts festival or like a children's music recital, and you're like, it's not brain surgery, why am I worrying about this? But I think because of budgets and things like that, and because of time, you're often on your own. I worked for a long time as a freelancer, but also for companies I've worked with, you're often doing stuff on your own. You don't have a team of people. So it means you're kind of carrying a load of stuff without a lot of people to help you or to go, it's all right, we'll figure this out together. And I think that's what I would have needed. I think if I had, in a few things I've had where I was just stressing about things, if I had someone else, hey guys, Rebecca, tomorrow afternoon, at 2 o'clock when I'm up, if someone had said, Rebecca, go to sleep, tomorrow at 8 a.m. I'll put the coffee on and we will sort it out. That probably would have been enough.
Yeah.
But I think that too often, like I said, we are stretched. There's not enough people to do work, and we shoulder too much of the stuff ourselves, and not only don't want to ask for help, but don't really have anybody that we think will be able to help us, basically. I mean, the other thing I'd say about the arts is that we don't really respect work-life balance very well. Probably because of that thing of like, it's fun. We do stuff on the weekends and nights, and we do shows, and it's all very fun. But like, getting phone calls at 11 o'clock at night on a Tuesday was normal. And looking at my email at 3 a.m. and seeing I had gotten one was not out of the ordinary. So I think I used to roll my eyes when I saw people who had emails that said like, we respect work-life balance. Do not expect me to respond to an email after 5:30 p.m. And I'd go, whatever. But now I go, actually, we should all do that. And if you don't have an employer who's willing to kind of respect that, then you're kind of feeding the problem.
If we can just go back to what you mentioned earlier on, which was you sort of said how it, it's not exactly brain surgery. But if I could add to that a lot of what a brain surgeon does takes place in private. So his success or failure is very much a private thing. But with regard to yourselves and your own job, your success or failure is very much a public affair. Not just individually public, but it would, it could be all around the world in minutes if it was something that was a sort of if it was something that appealed to people to send all everywhere. So do you think the fact that your success or failure could be very much a public thing, do you think that adds a lot more to the stress factor of it?
Yeah, I do. I mean, obviously, it's also the fact that, if you're an artist, and I do consider myself artist, when you make things, you're putting yourself into whatever you're doing. So you're putting yourself out there and looking for some sort of feedback. And if that's bad, then that can really have an impact on you, because that is part of your soul, that is part of you, that is part of everything. I wouldn't say that was me. Actually, I would much rather, I'm one of those, like, I would much rather throw myself in front of a car than be responsible for someone else getting hit, basically. So I probably wouldn't get stressed about my own work. I get stressed when someone entrusts me with doing theirs and I screw that up for them. And I think in the arts, it's such a small, at least in theater, it's such a small little microcosm of people that if someone knows that you screwed up their whatever, there's a real fear, and probably quite a legitimate fear, that will impact your reputation. It will, people will think badly of you. And so even though it's not something about putting yourself on the stage, people talk and it's out there and everybody knows. So, and there's always someone ready to take your place. There aren't a lot of arts jobs, actually, because there aren't a lot of jobs doing especially what you study to do. I think that's probably the case in a lot of fields. But there's also this kind of competitive nature that, like, if you can't do it right, or if you can't do it for this price, or if you can't get it done in this time, there's someone else who is willing to do it for cheaper, faster, and better. Whether that's true or not, but that is the kind of thought process that goes through your head. So as much as it might not feel high stakes in terms of content, in terms of your own personal value, it feels very, very important to be good at what you're doing, basically.
Do you also find that there's possibly a tendency for you to take responsibility for things that are actually beyond your control and that you're actually not responsible for?
Yes. I thought that was just a Canadian thing, because I apologize, like, when someone hits me with their shopping trolley, like, I apologize for everything.
I think that's very much a British thing as well.
It's a British thing too.
Sorry.
There you go.
Sorry, you just hit me.
Sorry, you just did this. I know, but I also had a background in customer service, so I was always just, yes, I'm sorry. I will take the hit for this. It's me. And then sometimes I go, no, it wasn't me. No, but I'm not argumentative. Like I said, I would much rather get hit by the bus than, so I have put myself in the line of fire because I knew that was probably an easier way than starting a fight over who is right or who is wrong. But I think, especially in events, there's so many things that are completely outside of your control. I used to do a lot of outdoor work. I mean, why you do outdoor artwork in British summertime is like beyond me, because you're just setting yourself up for stress. And people used to say, Rebecca, there's nothing you can do. You've got a wet weather plan, you've got this. Don't worry about it. You can't change it. Well, it doesn't mean you still freak out about what's going to happen in a couple of days when there's like a tsunami coming. Yeah, and isn't that the definition of stress? It's like things you cannot control, or there's something like that. And there are so many things when you're putting on a show or putting on a festival, you can't control. And I used to say to someone that I actually really enjoyed writing risk assessments, because in a risk assessment, you think of all the terrible things that could possibly happen, and then you go, but this is how I'm going to make sure it doesn't happen. So yeah, you're absolutely right. There's so many things, and it's quite sensible to go, Rebecca, you can't change them, but it doesn't mean you don't try with all of your might to make sure they don't happen.
We've got your 5-month-old Penny here. Is she asleep? No, not yet. I was wondering if you wanted to talk about how having a child has impacted on your practice. You're still on maternity leave,
yeah.
It's not, you're not back in work.
So it's not back yet, although, it's probably stupidly, I've been doing some freelance work while on maternity leave, because you don't have enough stuff to figure out. I was definitely, when I was pregnant, I definitely told work, I was like, don't worry, I'll be back. Like, I'll go crazy at home. I'll come back, don't worry. And I think I said maybe about 6 months. Yeah, there's no way. I am taking the full year. I'm taking the financial hit, I don't care. But obviously I have taken bits of freelance work. But that is because, I do still want to keep my mind, and I want to keep in circles of things. I think I was very scared about, and I mean, I had a child later. I'm nearly 36, which I mean apparently makes me like a geriatric mother according to the medical profession. But it's because there is a little bit of fear of, like, if you take a step out and you're climbing a ladder, you take a year out and you've been knocked down a few pegs. So I do think some of the freelance stuff is still just trying to keep in the discussion and keep in circles, like, I'm still here, don't forget about me. But I would actually say that having a baby has actually made me chill out more, which is weird. I would have thought it would make me more of a stress head.
I think
But
it's probably altered your focus.
well, I think so. I think now, if I was at work, I used to be the one, we used to call it, I used to have a friend of mine who we'd work with, and we used to call ourselves the bitter enders. So we were the ones at like a party who were like sweeping up the stuff off the ground. Like we wouldn't leave a party early because someone had to like clean up and make sure everybody got paid. And so I'm not going to be a bitter ender anymore. Like I did my bit. So now I'm quite happy to be that person at work who's like, actually, I got to go home and see the baby, or I got to pick up the kids from school, or, you know, I did my part. I did my little bit of time where I had no outside life. And now I kind of go, actually, I really want to go home and I want to see my baby, and I don't want to be on my laptop all night. So as much as it does feel like more of a juggle, in a way it puts it in perspective, and it makes me more confident to go, no, I'm not going to work this weekend, or I'm not going to work on it. I'm not going to have time. I've got a baby to look after, so sorry. I won't do that for you.
I think going back to the point about things out of your control and the stress levels with that, babies are definitely not something that you control. They have totally their minds of their own.
No.
And I think that when you accept that, it also affects the way you approach your art practice, because there is this other uncontrollable element.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking from my own experience, I was wondering if you found that as well.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, I've now, even though I've taken this bit of freelance work, I've actually tried to make it sound really unattractive to people who want me to work for them. I was like, look, my baby's not sleeping, and I don't know if I'll be able to make this meeting, and I don't know. I actually find that I'm saying no a lot more than I used to, because I've still got that chip that says I don't want to let people down. But at the same token, I don't want to say yes to something that I'm not going to be able to do to the best of my ability. And I'm not confident that when I've got a small person to look after, that I'm going to be able to give everything I can. So I think in a way, it's just made me be more self-aware and honest with myself. And probably before her, if I'd said, look, I got too much on, I can't do that thing you need me to do, I would have been better off for it. But I think weirdly, a baby feels like a good excuse versus my mental health, which is an awful thing to say. I can say I've got a human to look after. I'm a human that I need to look after, but this is an additional one who needs my attention.
That's really thrown me, actually, for my next question, because I'm thinking about the next one now. At the very beginning of the interview, we spoke about stress and anxiety and how it can manifest itself into physical things.
Yeah.
Would you be happy to expand on that a bit more?
Yeah. Well, I mean, aside from the obvious things like you're not taking, I never took a lunch break, which I say out loud now, and it kind of freaks me out that like I never actually left my desk and took a lunch break. I would eat occasionally, but I would eat at my desk. I would, eat in a meeting. I would have copious amounts of coffee and then not be really that hungry. And then I'd get home and I'd go like, oh yeah, I'm really eating today. Not sleeping, obviously not good for you. But my anxiety was often, I noticed that I would get knots in my stomach, which is like, I know it's like a common thing, people not, oh, I'm so nervous, I've got knots in my stomach. Like literally, I would feel nauseous. And I would wake up in the morning, I may have slept a couple of hours, I'd wake up in the morning and I'd feel so nauseous, I felt like I have to be sick before I went to work. And I'd show up to work totally fine, but I would have thrown up that morning in advance of going to work. And I say that out loud now, and I go, I can't believe that became my normal. And it's only after I left and took a break. I did quit a particular job because of stress. They wouldn't have known that. And there was lots of things, but after I left a particular job, I went, wow, I let myself do that to myself. And it just became normal. I mean, not everybody throws up at work or before they go to work. That's weird. But also, I mean, like, I was trying to have a baby, and I realized that, like, my menstrual cycle just left for about 8 months, probably because I wasn't eating well and I wasn't sleeping well and I wasn't. So I think that was the shock I needed to go, whoa, you know, if you don't take care of yourself, it's not just in your head, it's really going to make you sick. So I had to kind of do something about it. And like I said, I never went to, not saying there wasn't anybody I could go to at work, but I would never, it's you know, it's the stigma, isn't it? I would never feel comfortable going to someone and saying, I'm having a bit of a mental episode, need some time. I just never would. And that in itself adds more stress and anxiety because you're holding that in instead of telling someone that you need help.
I think that's quite typical though for many people, that the help only comes after the event.
Yeah.
And another sort of thing I'd like to sort of talk about as well is the fact that you said that having a baby enabled you to have a valid excuse for saying no.
Yeah.
And even that from my own experience, it was almost like you'd rather say anything than say, I've got a mental health problem.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Well, and it's obviously I've just been on a long haul flight with an infant, and that was one of the things they told me, isn't it? It was like, put your mask, if the masks come down from the ceiling, put your mask on before you tend to the baby. Well, I just don't think I would do that in the time. I'm not going to lie. I think I'd probably go to help her first. But it's that thing of like, I always put myself last. You know, if I had a birthday cake and it was my birthday and I was cutting it up, I'd make sure everyone else got a piece instead of me. Like, it's just that thing. And I do think that a lot of people are like that. They don't prioritize their own health, and they don't want to admit that they've got something that needs looking after, or they need looking after. As I said, it's a dangerous combination to be a people pleaser and someone afraid to ask for help. Because you can't be perfect, and you definitely can't be perfect on your own. So, yeah, I think that still shows my discomfort with my own mental health when I say, I've got a baby. I've got to go home because I've got to go to the baby, as opposed to I've got to go home because I'm tired.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you on that. I know from my own experience that when I said I had a mental health problem, you're viewed quite with suspicion in a way. And then I discovered the term career break, and then everyone's clapping you on the back, which I thought that was a great improvement for myself.
Well, I think if I had come out and said that I needed help, I have no doubt that people would have helped me. Especially, the thing I love about working in the arts is that you do you're more friends, family, you're together all the time. Like I said, you don't have a very good work-life balance. So you do have people who are very loving and supporting to you at work. Not like working in some offices where you've got cubes and all that sort of stuff. But at the same token, I think I would feel like even if I got help, it would still be like a mark against my name. If I went back to work, people would be afraid to overload me or afraid to give me things that they think are too stressful or too much because I've had this. And that is not the case. Like, I can handle a lot. So it's a weird sort of thing where you do need help, but and that is a reality, is I know that would happen. Is if I needed help with mental health, then someone would see me as someone who's a bit more fragile. Perhaps rightfully so, but I wouldn't want that to affect my work.
I think it's a case of the support that's required is not somebody to make that judgment call on how much work you take on.
Absolutely.
And people that care can sometimes overstep the support mark of taking those decisions off you sometimes. Like, you know, the fear, I think, is very real. It's a founded fear in the workplace. But there's that simple act of somebody saying, are you okay? Do you need support? Rather than presuming that you're not, and that you need the support of somebody deciding how much work you can take on.
No, absolutely.
I think having those questions asked in the workplace would probably be beneficial. Whether we admit and say no, we're not okay and we do need support is another matter. But
It's a very human thing.
Absolutely. And I do think that my struggles have made me more in tune to seeing other people that I notice are struggling, even though they're not saying it. And I think I've tried, I know especially in the last, well, these 5 months aside, the last year or so, I've been really conscious of even though I have no time, even going to people and saying like, if you want me to sit down and help you with this, I'm totally, we'll go get a coffee and we'll sort it out. Because that is what I always wanted, even though I would have never asked for it, is someone else to just go, you don't even have to do anything. I just need someone to sit with me, and I've got this problem and I need to talk it out with someone and share the burden, really. And so I have started to notice it in people that I work with. And so I've tried, where possible, to at least offer it. They might not take it up on, but to know that you can, if you need it, basically.
It sounds a little bit like, through your experience, you're almost like a mental health first aider. I mean, without the formal training.
Yeah, I have no training. Isn't that like giving someone first aid when you yourself are occasionally bleeding? It's not like you've still got a bandage on, but you're trying to give first aid to someone else.
Or like the fix your oxygen mask before fixing.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. I'm probably still trying to fix other people's oxygen masks, and I might be dying. But as I said, I would consider myself someone who's got anxiety and am highly functioning, to the point where I've had points where it has I really should have stopped, but I will never get rid of that anxiety. And I've kind of lived with that. I've got in my mind signs that I know that it's gone too far, but I think I think in many ways mine is personality driven. Is that anxiety is part of my personality, but I need to be able to equip myself with, the skills to say, I need help with this, or I'm going to stop and not do this anymore because it's bad for me. It sounds a little bit like people who are alcoholics, isn't it? Like, I will always be an alcoholic, but I'm not going to drink. You will always have that. I will always have that personality trait to be anxious. But I just need to find ways that I can manage it, that it doesn't affect my health.
Do you think having a better understanding from other people, like other colleagues and just the arts sector in general, do you think having other people having a better understanding of the kind of conditions that you experience and other people experience would help? So you can recognise anxiety traits in other people and step in and ask if they need help. Do you think if other people had that awareness, that would generally create a better, more supportive working environment?
I hope so. I mean, I don't think, as you said, people manifest things in different ways, don't they? I can recognize things that I used to do that I can see in other people. But I think that there's a lot to do with the culture of the arts sector that doesn't help mental health. And I think it's very ironic that so much arts work, especially recently, is about using art to battle mental health, to give you something else to focus your energy on, and how beneficial the art can be for mental health, which I agree with. But I also think that there's so much about working in the arts that doesn't breed a very good work culture. And I think, as I said, I used to roll my eyes about those things on the bottom of emails, but I do think that there needs to be a certain shut off. You need to give yourself space. You need to take your holiday and not just get paid out for it at the end of the year. Instead, you need to keep track of your hours and say, actually, I'm owed 17 hours this week, or, and it shouldn't be the employee's responsibility to do that. It should be your employer saying, I value you, and this is what we need to do to make sure that you're in the best health possible. And I think that, like I said, I don't think there's an unwillingness for anybody I've ever worked with to do that, but I don't think anybody's ever asked. Probably because they don't want to be a bother, don't want to show that I need that. But it doesn't make it any more or less needed in what I've experienced anyway.
I think that's unless you have any more questions, I think that's a brilliant point to end on. Thank you so much for talking to us.
No, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.